started in March because the only month today this work session. And we have some long-term things coming up. There is a Mariners game on the 21st of April, through the time you would normally have K1B. So they are proposing the 20th or the 28th. And then on May 19th, they're proposing the 26th. So those are a bit of ways out.
What's good for you guys, since I had a little show to myself last night.
Either of those would be fine again.
Again, what were the choices?
April 20th instead of the 21st. It's a Wednesday, so you're usually in the West End on Wednesday.
Or what was the other choice?
Or 28th, which is a Thursday.
John Wayne.
Yeah, I think I got on the 28th.
So maybe the 21st.
Yeah, probably the 28th would be better.
And then do we want to work out to May, or do we want to just roll for right now?
Let's just stick with April for right now.
Commissioner Beach, you're going to be basically out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Will I see you Friday?
With luck, they're trying to draw me into another meeting dealing with the Whole River Trust in Seattle on Friday. See if I can get by with just a phone call.
Other than Commissioner Peach, the next 2 weeks look pretty benign.
I'm going to be out of the office Wednesday through Friday because my wife and I are celebrating our wedding anniversary.
Oh,
All right.
congratulations.
Thank you.
To your children. Any changes there? I guess this is a calendar item as well. Commissioner Ozai, you mentioned in a board meeting that the Salish Behavioral Health Organization membership was looking at all of the commissioners from each
Yes.
of the 3 counties getting together. And they sent out a doodler poll, and I asked them to give me some dates. I know one responded. They're looking at Tuesdays and Fridays in March, 10 through 11. Times are 10 to 11 or 11 to 2. And so I don't know, what was your preference?
Almost all of those dates work for me except for there was maybe one. I'd have to go back and look at my email to see. But most of those were good for me.
So it looks like 10 to 11, 17, 18, 24, 25.
I think except for March 24th and 25th, I think most of the others were fine for me.
Okay, so the 24th is the North Olympic Development Council. Which
Correct.
You're an attendee for that.
And the 25th is a marine sanctuary. which
So
I
those
was
won't
attending.
work for you.
Correct. Those will not work, but all the other ones I think will.
And do either of the other, and did you have a time preference?
No.
10 to 1 or 11?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
See what you can set up, figure it out.
Okay, are you open?
Well, I am right now, but one never knows.
Okay,
So-
then Commissioner Peach?
Same here, was the 17th one of
But
them?
you're trying to get 3 counties commissioners schedules. I don't think you're going to
17th
make it work, it's perfect.
The 17th is the K1P.
Right. That was my only issue. That's
Okay.
the day that.
And then I've got you in a conference call webinar at 1:30 on the 11th.
Yeah, and I'll move that, I can record that.
Any preference, morning or afternoon? Anyone?
Easy. Good luck on that one.
Thank you.
9 commissioners in the room at the same time?
I'm gonna need some.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The goal would be to get a majority of each board there. Probably.
I think they were hoping to have all 3 of the boards from Kitsap, Jefferson, and
Yes.
Clallam together. Is that
Yes, they were.
So, correspondence. You received an invitation to the chemical dependency, mental health meetings, homelessness task force. and the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Committee. So just kind of, if you're interested in attending when their regularly scheduled meetings are. Have a letter from Puyallup Valley Parks and Rec regarding the Trust Funds Advisory Committee. It says they just wanted to thank you about establishing that, and because they're a junior taxing district, they're impacted by that funding. Please be our guest for Save the Olympic Peninsula's fundraising event, Town Road, March 5th. You all were invited to that. Letter that was sent to Commissioner Peach, all three of you, I copied it to you. Transit System Employee Award Ceremony, Sunday, March 13th. Dinner buffet, safety awards, employee of the quarter, employee of the year. Official transit event, your expenses for attending will be eligible for both payment and assistance and official event. And they are asking for an RSVP. Does anyone?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to that one. I went last year, it's 2 o'clock at Sunland. It's a really good event, yeah.
It doesn't have a time, interesting. Ask you to RSVP, it says Sunday, March 13th.
Right. No, they gave us the heads up at the board meeting.
Anyone?
I may attend that, I'll let you know but next week, so you've got time to announce it.
Correspondence from Jan L. Richardson regarding the YMCA SARC request for a grant for the air defense. And then I'm going to send something around with some stars. Bob Martin gave me a copy of the bid document for the Carlsberg sewer bids that you'll be opening tomorrow. It is a 6-page bid document that they'll be filling in. He would like you to read the ones that I start, numbers 1 and 3. So when you get the bids, this is what you're going to be looking for to read into the record tomorrow. So just page 6.
Then I wanted to report on a piece of correspondence, if you're done.
I believe I am.
Last week, late, all three of you received an email, internal email, concerning one of our people's wife who was turned away from the clerk's office trying to use a personal check, and I was asked to investigate in that. And what I found was that, and confirmed this morning, I was not aware from my entire time here, Superior Court clerk has never accepted personal checks. Barb assured me this morning that, in fact, her entire time here as the clerk, the previous clerk prior to her, and the previous clerk prior to her. So for at least 25 years, as far as anybody can look, Superior Court clerk's office has never accepted a personal check. This is not a new thing. We are working on trying to get a credit card vendor, or we've been approached by a credit card vendor that will charge the fee to the person using the credit card in court, in Superior Court, and trying to get permission from the state, because Superior Court's a little different than District Court. The money, the checks that we get in going towards Superior Court fees, they all go to the state. And then they send us back our share, whereas the District Court, they all come to us, and we take out the state's share and send it. So I just want to let you know that this is not a new thing. Barb is going to be responding this morning, and then I've been trying to get a hold of the sender of this to talk to him myself. He's got another crisis out there that we're trying to deal with, and I'm not sure where we're going to go with his personnel. And as you know, some of you already know about that. So just want to let you know, personal checks, this is not a new thing. it is certainly nothing pointed toward this individual. It's, as far as anybody can tell, always been that way. We don't take personal checks for Superior Court.
I haven't used it. Do you have a cash machine here?
Yes.
ATM?
Yes.
So there's another solution.
Yeah. We do take business checks. We take attorneys, any business check. We've always taken those, but we don't take personal checks.
Anything else on calendar correspondence?
I was just logged in. I have this, on the 4th, it's a day dedicated for, is it homeless? Or is it for vets or both?
Okay, Homeless Connect.
Homeless Connect. And that's all day at Vern Burton or something?
That's all day at Vern Burton, 9 to 3. And many social service agencies, medical providers, things like that come together. So any homeless person or person to be homeless can attend the event. And the services are offered. There's a closed closet. We feed them lunch, all that sort of thing. And any place in the county, if they're going to take a bus, all they have to do is say they're coming to Homeless Connect. They won't be charged. This is about our 5th or 6th year that we've been doing that. So it's a good event. We usually get about 300 people coming through. It's not specific to veterans, like Operation Stand Down, because this can be anyone. So you have a lot of families that come through, a lot of children, some elderly. You know, we have a dental van there. There'll be some medical providers to check people. There'll be free haircuts, sometimes massages, just all kinds of great services. I pet sit, so if people come, they can't take their animals in with them to Vern Burton. We make accommodations.
That's kind of cool. It's pretty neat the way the bus service.
Yes.
And they're really, you know, it's just a real quick comment as you get up to the bus, no other questions asked.
Okay, Amendment 3 with correctional healthcare companies.
This amendment, work session was back in November. CHC had an proposal for us. We brought it to the board. It meant to increase in the budget. We got approval for that increase and to move ahead, and so we did, and unfortunately it's taken about 4 months to get to this point, but we're here now, we have these amendments, and we're asking for this increase to be in the general budget.
So, red file next week. Okay. Any questions? No. Thanks. An agreement with Washington State Military Department and Department of Homeland Security for emergency management grant. Let's make sure Trish has a copy of that.
Good morning.
Morning.
If you have any questions about this, or you want to learn the history, or,
I wouldn't mind if you a little history.
okay. This grant comes from the military division, emergency management military division out of Mount Murray. It is a state grant that we've been receiving since 2008, and it's a performance grant. So the funds they give you, you're to expend on making your program more robust, better outreach. We use a lot of this to help with our individual preparedness around your neighborhoods, our CERT training. It also pays a large portion of our travel budget for training, professional development, bringing speakers in or trainers in. We do that several times a year. Pretty much that's about what it is. It supports our volunteer program too. You can pay for their travel through this particular grant fund.
Is this an annual grant? I notice it runs out at the end of August. Will you be reapplying?
Yes, they are always due June 1st. We've been awarded this every year, so we're fortunate and we use it well. We need it. So,
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, so it's ready to file item next week. No further questions?
Thank you, Dean. Thanks,
Agreement with ARINC for engineering and technical support for public safety radio network.
This is Aaron Incorporated, and that, they are the engineering firm that designed the whole entire Opscan network for us. We got the $5.8 million grant back in It was there, they were awarded, and so we've actually had agreements with them for maintenance ever since that time. So this is a renewal of their contract with us. Now what their role is they monitor our Opscan maintenance emails, and so when there's a problem with the network that they can fix, they go online into our equipment and make the necessary changes. When we have upgrades that are required, they help us with that. Jeff Christopher at PenCom is the second tier down, so he works with Aaron and determining how to do that when they're not available. And we couldn't run our network successfully without Aaron's engineering staff. So right now they're on a quarterly payment of $2,000, so the contract is $8,000 annually.
So is this all of your radio and internet communications? What communications for the Sheriff's Department does this comprise?
Do you want to explain?
Well, the network is what links all of the radios for the sheriff's office, all the city police departments, as well as all the fire stations. So this is what they're monitoring is a virtual, actually it's a real network. Some areas it's on T1 lines, other areas it's microwaves. Other links it's on shared microwaves with the Coast Guard. So because of where radios are now with multicast, some simulcast and whatnot, is that you need to have your transmitters linked with, so that the correct transmitter or receiver is tuned when there's a transmission.
Great. Thanks.
Bill, you run all that separate from the IT or Kev's department?
Yes.
You want to
Yes.
stand alone?
Absolutely. I would love to be able to turn it over to our IT or to PenCom or to some other agencies, but that's how it came about when we got the big grant, 2006 and 7, was that it was going to be run by the Sheriff's Office. And I think that looking down the line with the moves that we have towards PenCom and JeffCom, the two dispatch centers joining, I would expect that in the next 2 or 3 years that our radio system as well as the network will migrate over there.
So the question I have is, in the budget for Opscan, you have already listed as an expenditure item the ARINC contract at $12,000. So is this on top of that or in place of that?
No, that $12,000 can actually be reduced down to the $8,000.
Well, if that's the case, this doesn't have to come to the commissioners. It's within $10,000. It's already in the budget, which the sheriff can just sign. This is a personal services agreement on a budgeted item. I mean, it doesn't need to come.
Are you going to use the money for something else?
We knew that.
Of course.
We just wanted to let you know what we're doing.
I actually wrapped them all up in a package today, so we can talk about Aaron, we can talk about the Zebra Runner.
But it doesn't.
The new commissioner appreciates that.
And you're right. I don't have any pride of ownership, but I was a little surprised too. But that contract through the years has been negotiated down and down and down, simply because we're getting both more reliable equipment as well as the cost of that kind of online maintenance is coming down. Wasn't it $30,000 a year, missed something there?
No.
So anyway, it's a red file item, the way it's listed here for next week. And
Was
your choice.
Don't
You
we usually
decide.
have, the board, the commissioner sign those contracts anyway?
Not if it's less than $10,000 an hour in the
Okay.
budget.
All right.
But they can. I mean, that's just one thing we don't do. I applaud absolutely bringing it so they're aware of it, but it's up to you. We can wait till next week, but I noticed AR and INC haven't signed it either.
Right, we have a proposal from them, but no, I don't have a signature on there yet.
If it was 12, you'd have to bring it to them to sign. But less than 10, you don't. Or if it was more than what was in the budget, you'd have to bring it to them to sign.
So next is an agreement with David Zero. Any businesses concluded?
And Dave, as well as Aaron, Dave was contracted with us when we were awarded the BOCC grant, and he did the design of the network. He was the one who put the bid documentation together, and then he worked with Aaron from that point on to maintain our network, build and maintain it. So this contract with Dave is a continuation of his role as the technical consultant for the OpScan network. And right now, we don't have anyone back who do what Dave Zeeland does for us in the design of this network. So this is a 6-month contract. We still are waiting for the AdCom study that we're going for 2 years. It's a review of the network to see what changes they might recommend for us. Dave's goal is to carry us through whatever the regionalization brings, the move of OpScan. That's his goal, his commitment to us. But as you saw the third item here, we need to move away from his technical expertise and develop someone else. Dave's commitment to us is through November at the latest. He may continue on in the same role as Eric has, really monitoring our problem emails and then just getting in, calling on the phone and letting us know what it is that we should be doing. But right now, he's still operating as he has been as our technical consultant, and this is to continue that role.
This one, even though it's only $3,000, does require coming to the board because it's not specifically in the contract. And since he already signed it, it would make sense not to change it. What I would recommend, though, is that get with.
I'm sorry, it's 24.
Yeah, that's just for travel.
Oh, it's 24,000.
Right.
Oh God, well, it's got to come to them anyway. You've got to figure out how you're going to pay for this. This would be either a budget emergency or a budget change of some sort.
It's already in the budget as well.
It's, because it's part of the OpScan budget.
I'm looking at OpScan.
That was one of the problems when we went into the 2016 budget. That was an error that was made, and I believe that it was corrected in January or the 1st of February.
Oh, this was
by
one of the
Debbie.
corrections we made.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, just want to make sure I didn't see it in here.
Yeah. So it's
I missed
in there.
that, 3,000. Oh, you're right, there we go, just for cost.
So when you say
24,600.
a problem email, can you give us an example of what is a problem email?
Oh, we have an Outlook email grouping called OpScan Maintenance, and when dispatch receives word usually from our deputies or a PA officer, a SWIM, anybody that's using the radio system, if there's a problem, they let PENCOM know. PENCOM then sends an email out to the OpScan maintenance group describing what the problem is, and then Aaron monitors that, Richmond Radio monitors that, Dave Zeeland, our radio techs, and then they all look at it, and then one of them is responsible to respond, and then to direct the group as to what it is that they should be doing. And Jeff Christopher is on that as well. So it works really well. You get immediate response from one of those experts.
So it's an email that says there's a problem,
Yes.
not like an email email that's 500 terabytes, and that's a problem. I was trying to figure it out.
Right.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And the study that's referenced here, when that study is released, will that help provide direction as to where who will provide these services after Condiment, after David's commitment?
Do you want to speak to the AdCom study?
Well, there was a couple studies. Are we referencing the radio study or the consolidation?
Not the one that we received for the consolidation, but the true reading.
Okay. In anticipation of some kind of a consolidation eventually with the radios and with OpScan and with the dispatch center, AdCom was given, I want to say $60,000 from PENCOM's money to essentially do a study of our radio network. An inventory of everything that we had, whether it was going to satisfy the needs of the peninsula law enforcement and whatnot. That study is not yet been, it's been done, but it was not really accepted. It isn't very thorough. It doesn't tell us anything that we don't already know. I don't know that it really will. So, but the idea and why the study was done is this is amazingly acceptable as it is when we eventually vote as a group with the PENCOM users group to transfer all the radios over to PENCOM and have them. And by the way, they would also take over this contract, and they would take our 2 half-time FTEs, which we're asking for one to become a full-time 1 FTE. They would transfer over to that, either be under the Port Angeles City or under this new independent PENCOM that needs to be created.
So, the study then, I'm sorry, you're saying you're expecting that it's probably still not going to provide any helpful information?
Well, that's kind of editorial on my part. Of course, it's going to be useful in that it's an inventory of what we have, of all the different pieces. Since we've been upgrading in the last 3 years, one of the big things is that all of our radios had to go to narrow banding. And it used to be they were on like 15 kilohertz spacing. They're now at 7.5 kilohertz, I think. So I got a BOCC grant from the state to do that. And I replaced all of the city radios, Squim, Port Angeles, Forks, Elwha, and others. So in doing that, we developed what was called the PRSN now, the PSNR, Public Safety Radio Network. So essentially the county owns all public safety police radios on the peninsula, not fire. We didn't do fire. Fire did their own, and they operate in the VHF band, and we operate the UHF band. Does that kind of help you?
A little bit. And so in essence, this contract is to maintain the engineer, in essence, for the radio network until you decide what to do next.
I should also say this is that OpScan is what Jim Jones would refer to as an enterprise budget, am I correct? And so it is mostly self-funded, funded by the individual entities. And
Of which we're a partner, we're one of the major
right.
funders.
And it's a rather complex billing method that we use. It isn't proportional. We try to take a look at how much these agencies use the equipment. So this $24,000 that we're talking about for him is in the budget now that we're going to come in. Our portion of that's, what, about a third? If you wanted to look at that, third or fourth. And other entities. And he also will extend over, as I said, he works on the OpScan, which is really not part of the PRSN. It's a separate entity with separate subscribers.
All right. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thanks. So next week, and you guys want to talk about moving 2 part-time people to 1 full-time person?
Well, and that was stated incorrectly on the agenda. And that's probably my fault how I wrote it up. But we actually have 2 less than part-time employees. We want to maintain both of those people. We want to keep 1 position at less than part-time, and we want to move the second position to full-time. So it's an increase to the budget of about $49,000. And the reason that we want to do that is because when we first hired them, we didn't know what the budget would look like. We didn't know what the workload would be. And we thought it would be a bad time to ask for 2 full-time employees at that point in time. It was at the beginning of 14 that we hired them. So for 2 years, they've been working at this 69, almost, sometimes they go to 80 hours per month. And I consider that we've been limping along in our ability to get the projects done in order to maintain our network. Because we could find enough work for them to both work full-time, but we don't have the money to do that. You gave us in this year's budget $169,000 for equipment. James Zerum has used almost every single penny of that for capital equipment or for contractors to come in when we need someone else to do the work. So that money is still allocated for that purpose. But we don't have the people, the staffing to get that work done. So that's why we want to move one of those personnel up to full-time. So they can come in, they can get the job done, and we can actually spend that money in a timely manner because the work is there. Our officers on the road are screaming for that work to be done. It's all throughout the county, at 23 sites. Dave actually has a project list that I didn't have ready to present to you today, but it shows where that money is going and what site it's going to, what equipment he's planning on purchasing. We took a look at the budget, Dave and I did, and through the user fees, we believe that there is enough money in the OpScan budget to support this position, at least for this year, to get us through so that we can get this project work done, so that we can move one of those people to full-time. And we have a radio technician, a lead radio tech, and then the assistant radio tech, and it's the assistant radio tech that we want to move to full-time.
Okay.
So when you look at all the changes, the last couple of documents that we processed, this is the only one that I saw that has a variance to budget, remember?
Yes.
Yeah, and once again, this would be probably the majority of this will come out of user fees, which will get adjusted again. And I want to add that it would be my goal that as we move along, that position as well, when all this equipment is moved over to the dispatch center, would go over there. The real, and that was a great explanation that Alice gave. The way I kind of see it is that the unintended consequences of getting $6 or $7 million in 2006, followed by $3 million over the time for radio equipment and whatnot. 2 things. One thing is we're not used to actually paying for this, and there's a lot of small and medium agencies that rely on grants to get it, number one. Number 2 is that the grants are wonderful because they buy the equipment, but when the equipment either breaks down or requires maintenance or requires other stuff, you're kind of left out there hanging. Our dispatch and our deputies have the MDTs, which are like the mobile computers, which The savings of that is that PennCom has fewer dispatchers, so they save on the personnel costs. But now there's equipment costs that need to be replaced and supported as you go along. And this is probably a reflection of that. Another thing is that sometimes you do too much with too little, and that becomes what you're expected to do. And quite frankly, it's with these 1.5 guys, they're at least 6 months, maybe a year behind on installing the stuff that we've got the capital expenditures for.
But the way the system works, this is about $50,000, and I think I heard you say there's an allocation process?
Yes.
For the cost sharing?
Well, even having said that, there's also in the enterprise budget, every year I get, I don't know, you run Stone Garden, probably a low of 20 or 30 to a high of $80,000 a year has been coming in from the Stone Garden that is, and that can only go for capital items. But then that in turn frees up other user fees that can pay for employee pay and benefits.
So are we going to recover any of this in 2016?
I expect we're going to recover 3/4 of it.
Right, that was when Dave did the budget originally, when he, back in mid-year in 15, when he looked at the user fees and put together the budget, he actually put in the money for the salaries for the personnel. But at that time, we didn't come and ask for that person to be full-time. Well, actually, we did, but then we were asking for it, and then we pulled it back off the table. That money is still sitting there, really in the fund balance. It could have been allocated for services to pay other contractors, but we've now made the decision that we're desperate to do this person full-time.
Just to add this, in case the commission, I'm sure you are, and don't want to sound preachy, but you enterprise budget, you roll money over. So what did we in the fund balance last year with the OpScan?
88,000.
So these are carried over, and part of that is going to be for this, the salary of this.
And to back up what Alice said, the budget, past budgets for 2016 shows an ending fund balance of $138,378. So you've added 60,000 more than you're spending. So what you're saying is the money was put in as a revenue item, but was not allocated as an expenditure, just it remained in the ending fund balance. So this will require a budget emergency as far as using that ending fund balance, in addition to the commissioner's approval for adding personnel. So it's a two-stage process.
But the net to the county is zero cash flow impact. Because they're going to be drawn out of a reserve fund dedicated for this use.
Yeah, it's out of its own fund. It's not anything to do with our general fund monies.
You know, it's not quite zero because there's an allocation. It's just, I'm not used to seeing a budget recommendation that has a cost and a revenue stream. This is just showing us the cost.
Right.
But the reality is the revenue is assisting in that cost.
And it's already included in the budget, the revenue side.
And I didn't do the budget change one for today because I need to get with the HR department and really look at how we do payroll for this person. These positions were set up actually in the sheriff's operations budget, which is a general fund budget. So some of them, well, their salary comes out of the sheriff's office operations budget, and then we bill the OpScan budget for reimbursement for time that they are working on OpScan related projects. The increase now in the costs and then how they are spending these extra hours now will be entirely out of the OpScan budget. So I need to figure out payroll-wise, which then affects the budget, how it is we're going to do that.
Alice, I have a question. Are we going to get hit with indirects on this as well?
It should change our indirects,
yes.
Well, also, you'll get hit with the requirement to meet the 10% reserve balance now that you have personnel coming out.
You mean, oh, in the enterprise fund?
Yeah. And that's only, if if you're spending 334,000, you need to keep 35,000 in there. Well, you've never been below 80 before, so that shouldn't be a real problem. But again, that will be a requirement when you have personnel coming out, that you have to maintain 10%.
I've just got one last question. I'm supportive of you having the technical staff that you need to implement the system successfully. How do you square staffing up internally with your stated goal of a couple of years down the road moving the system over to PINCOM or somewhere outside of the sheriff's office?
Those positions would go with that. Everything that I think that, and there's no issues. They're represented by the AFSCME, LC union. Is that where they are now?
I need to speak with Rich about that, but the assumption that they would go to ask me not to.
So anyway, that's what I imagine. And there's they're attached to the function of radios. If the radios in the network go to another agency, they would go also. As would the entire budget.
There is the possibility that we would still use them for our sheriff's mobile radios. And so if that was the case, then I'm assuming that PENCOM and the City of Port Angeles would bill us for their time, just like we are now billing to the other agencies.
Thank you.
I think the seed to plant is that if we do get to, and as I said, we need a substantial step because the director of JEFCOM and PINCOM is the same person now. It's Carl Haddon. And we're looking to merge mostly right now in terms of how they operate with SOPs and whatnot. But the county, we're going to need a home for this new organization. And I seriously doubt that the city of Port Angeles is going to want to have it there. One of their big problems and one of their objections to taking, say, the OpScan network and our radios is that most cities, the city limit confines what they own, what they do, what their jurisdiction is. So they would be, if the city would take it under PINCOM, they're talking about having radio stations. We've got one in Canada, we've got a couple in Jefferson County, and we've got 15 in Clallam County. So that entity, most of the regional dispatch centers operate either totally independent or under the auspices of the county. So this might be something that I would push to have it come to the county because it's a fairly large organization. There'd be a total of at least 50 employees. They're going to need payroll, HR, legal support, and whatnot. If you make them an entity of their own, now you're going to have to, in addition to the 50 employees that are doing the dispatching and the radio maintenance, now you're going to have an HR director, you're going to have to have legal representation, payroll, and other stuff, so that truly the most economical way to have this thing would have it be a department within the county, and then have various governance boards to.
So, but right now, it's its own standalone entity, a company, if you will?
No, it's not. It is a department within the city of Port Angeles. It is the direct report for our PINCOM director is the chief of police. It has an advisory board, which acts like the governance board, but the fact is it is just an advisory board. In general, the city manager and the police chief accede to the wishes of the advisory board. But it is wholly run, owned, and operated by the city of Port Angeles.
Appreciate that.
And I would also say it's a unique outlier. If you want to know the history of it, it is the only regional dispatch center in the state of Washington could be the whole West Coast, that is essentially run by a city. This goes back to the early 90s when there was some rather strong disputes between the sheriff's office and the city police.
Bill Myers in particular.
Pardon me?
I remember getting in the middle of that.
Oh, yeah, anyway.
Myers and Dan.
And between the personalities, the only way that the agreement came, and by the way, back then, the city police department was a little bit bigger than the county sheriff's office. Now it's reversed. We're much bigger than they are. The only acceptable solution was for the city to run it. And it's been that way for the last 26 years.
Kind of the heads up you're offering us, Bill, is the transition in a couple of years could be toward the county taking the lead responsibility for as many as 50 people.
Yes, as well as, and then of course, all the employees that I have that are working for me now would work for that other entity, and it would be like my relationship with IT would be the same thing, would be what my relationship with the radio system is that I would be a client or a customer.
Is Jeffco, now that you're talking about combining, you got the one director, has Jefferson County been involved with saying, hey, maybe they'd like to run it? Does that also come up? Because that would also make some potential sense.
It could be run under, certainly the PENCOM is a department, if you will, within the county for payroll and other purposes, but in Jefferson County, the dispatch center has its own board of governors that actually make all the decisions. They just kind of subcontracting, if you will, through the county for HR support, legal support and whatnot. So yeah, I wouldn't have a problem at all with
That
having
board
their-
potential.
Well, we would have membership on that board.
Of course.
Yeah.
But they're actually a governing board instead of an advisory board like we have here, is what I'm hearing you say. And that would make it clean.
There's a tendency, and the last thing I need to would warn, as long as we're in that thing, sometimes there's a tendency in some regional dispatch centers that have been created as standalone entities, find that they're competing with police and fire for assets and as well as other things, and you'll find that suddenly your dispatch center has grown huge and is this huge cost center that is rumbling on its own without a lot of regard for why it's there and who its customers are. A good example on that is Skagit 911, as well as Grays Harbor 911. They got it, and so I would, and that's a function of the governance board.
Any other questions?
More to come on that.
So what's the next step then for the employee?
Well, the next step is if the board has no objection telling you to move forward, that's what we would like to hear today, then you go through get to Rich and he sets it up and do the job description and does determine in fact if it goes to Teamsters or not, and then comes up for me to sign, and then before he starts spending any money, we do the budget agreement.
Is there any objection to the sheriff moving forward?
No.
No.
Good to hear.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
An agreement with Clallam Conservation District for renewable resource conservation activities.
Okay, this is us out of the BOCC office, and these funds are already in the adopted budget. This is just a formal memorandum of agreement between Clallam County and the Clallam Conservation District in the amount of $26,000.
Any questions?
No, I'd just like to say I took some time Thursday morning to learn more about the Clallam Conservation District and the work that they do. And it sounds like this has been the same allocations dollar-wise that they've had from the county every year for a decade or more. So, and it's really impressive, the breadth of work that they accomplish. So I'm happy to.
Do they hit you up to support their property tax?
They mentioned it.
Been wanting the county board of commissioners to put out a property tax for years to support their activities. Something to watch in the future.
Yes.
Parks, Fair, and Facilities. Just for the record, I doubt if Bill's going to support the tax increase this year. I'm not interested in looking at it personally this year, so it'd be a great thing for candidates this fall to tee up and campaign or for or against. But I'm not supporting moving the conservation property tax forward at this time.
But on this one here, we're just going to go ahead with the
Unless Bill wants to raise
existing
property taxes.
taxes.
Right.
How much lower can we make the property taxes? I love having that. So we are going to proceed with this.
They don't get any now.
Right,
Right, yeah, they don't
They just
get a property
continue, every
tax.
year they have, well, many times they continue to ask for the county to consider the property tax.
This is a letter file item for the 8th, just
That's
to
right.
sign the annual contract.
Parks, Fair, and Facilities.
Good morning. The Parks Department is working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to apply for funding through the Federal Lands Access Program, FLAP. I think you're a little bit familiar with it through the Roads Department. The proposed project, the funding will be used for will include expansion, realignment, and resurfacing the parking lots out adjacent to the wildlife refuge out there in Dungeness Recreation Area. Also renovating the restroom that's closest to the trailhead there. The 13.5% match requirement would be met through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service through their people. So there wouldn't be any funds coming from the county for this.
Right.
There's a match required, but it's being paid for.
Yeah, it's being met by, I can't think of the term, but through engineering and design work that the Fish and Wildlife Service will provide.
So this is on for tomorrow, and not a document that you see here. This is the same thing we had last week with the Roads Department when they were applying for Western Federal Lands Highway Division. They wanted the board to approve the grant application. So that, while it's on the agenda for tomorrow, I don't think we have that particular signatory page yet. I don't see it.
I've given the original to Trish. I've got 5 copies here, as well as the proposed.
I actually don't see it on the agenda for tomorrow. What number is it? Can you see it? I don't see it.
Maybe we have to add it. I thought Trish said she was in there.
Do you have a timeline issue on this?
The deadline is the 4th.
It's on March.
This week.
You're right, she didn't add it. They're asking to add it, so we could add it as a 2C if the board would so inclined, but there is a timeline problem. I should add it already.
So there's no financial impact. Have we had any members of the public comment on, anything positive or anything negative on this project?
No, we did bring it up at a park board meeting, but Park and Mail unanimously approved the project.
What is a speed table?
It's not a speed hump.
Mhm.
Okay, well, this it comes up and then it levels off a little bit and then drops down. This allows the pedestrian traffic to cross on the top of the speed table.
Sounds like it's guaranteed to take your muffler out.
Only if you're driving too fast.
That's right.
That's a big deal then.
Bill, do you have any problem if we add it tomorrow?
I'd like to proceed with it, especially if the committee has already looked at it and approved it. Yeah, so that's fine with me.
We also have a letter of support that interested in the commissioners looking at possibly signing for the same project.
So we can add that to the consent agenda if you have a draft.
I do have a draft.
So 1F, letter of support.
And I'm not sure on the procedure, do I give these documents to you or Trish?
Trish. And then tell her it's added item 1F. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Public Works. Agreement with A2Z Enterprises for the purchase of land for the Lower Elwha Road project.
For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is the Sprint Road property that will feed in on where it's at. So there's 4-mile road frontage on the east side of the Lower Elwha Road, on the north side of Edgewood Drive, Walton, and in there. So this is one of our major players on that side. Nice to get this taken care of. It's okay with you?
Any questions? Bill?
No issues?
So it's on for next week. Any questions? Sounds good. Agreement with Susan Allen for the Carlsbad Sewer project.
Yeah, the next three easement agreements, they're all related to Carlsbad, they're all related to serving some private roads that connect with Carlsbad Road and head to the east. All of these easements involve a trade-off between our getting the easement and the property owner getting a connection for free. In negotiating these, Joe Swordmaker did an excellent job, I think, and discovered that for the most part, almost all the residences in these areas do wish to be connected. They are not, for your information, part of the initial plan for connection, but we wanted to have easements in place and in reserve in the event that we get a bid that leaves us a little wiggle room to add a line here or there, or in the event that we have to delete a line, we've got backup places where we can provide service. So that's kind of what this is about. If it ends up that we don't put the lines in these easements, we still have the easements for future use.
How are we doing on easements required for the main line?
I think we've got them all worked out.
Excellent.
And I would just like to say one quick word about the bid opening tomorrow, if that's okay. It's promising. We got, the last count I saw was 38 contractor plan holders. So that, based on the calls I'm receiving, there's a lot of work going into preparing bids. So I'm optimistic at least that we'll get a good bid response. You never know until you know, but that doesn't sound like a good reason. But I'm optimistic. One of the things I'd like you to look for tomorrow during the bid opening is look for sheet P6. That's this sheet here. It's a summary of the bids. It's probably fairly obvious that that's the numbers that we would like you to read into the record because of the way we set this up in two schedules. There's a Schedule A and Schedule B. We could award Schedule A separately, or we could award on the basis of Schedule A plus Schedule B. So on the summary sheet, we'd like you to read Schedule A number, and we'd like you to read the Schedule A plus B number. That's line 1 and 3.
And Trish already gave that to them, and I'll make
Okay,
sure
good.
that we get a copy for each of the commissioners to have in hand tomorrow when the bids are over.
So that's all I have.
And Bill, since you won't be here tomorrow, normally what we do is just open them up, read them into the record, and refer them to Public Works. There'll be no decision made tomorrow, so.
Thank you.
And when you bring back a recommendation, just make sure that Bill's gone on the first Tuesday of the month, so don't bring it back on that day. So he can weigh in as well on a major project like this. Are we still continuing to remind people that District Beach misses the first Tuesday
Yes,
of the month?
we are.
So- Okay. Any other questions on Rosewood Shore?
Last one.
General discussion, future agenda items, some dates that have now been posted for some of the items. Any questions or comments? Anybody have anything to add?
Yeah, I just have one bit to add. I've spent a few more minutes speaking with Rich still about performance review process for the administrator. And I've also had some conversations with several members of the Sequim City Council who have recently engaged in a annual review process for their city manager, Charlie Bush. They were very, very impressed with the person who they had do that. And in conversation with Rich last week, he was very supportive of the concept of us bringing someone from outside in to help put that process together. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm doing a little bit more investigation. I just got the name of this person, and you can expect to hear from me within the next couple of weeks. What if we were to use someone external, what that process might look like for us. So just a heads up.
If you remember when we teed this up in January, that was my initial suggestion, was to bring somebody in that I thought we needed a neutral person. I've been uncomfortable that it's ended up at Rich's desk, but that was kind of the recommendation you guys kind of initially thought was a good way to go. I'd much rather have somebody from outside the organization do it and take a look and work through the process. I think the public would be better served by that process than an internal process overseen by the individual who works directly for the administrator. It's not going to meet public muster.
I agree completely.
So it's the city of Sequim?
Yeah, the city of Sequim, the city of Sequim City Council hired this person to help them do an annual review for their city manager. So the equivalent position from the city, and they were they've used a number of different firms over the years, and the folks that I heard from had they felt like this was a really thorough process, and they really appreciated the way that it went from start to finish. So I thought that was a good recommendation and at least a good place to start. So,
as I remember, he still operates under a scope of work and a contract that the majority of the board had nothing to do with, and going into next year, nobody on the board will have had anything to do with. So whatever the goal is, and whether it pushes off now into next year, whether the two of you sign it and then try to get the third commissioner's signature next year, I think at some point this year it'll be too late for me to sign a contract extension and a job description change. But it's really in your guys' lap how you want to move forward, what you want going into next year. That this review is the first step, but there's two others in my opinion. You have an individual who's operating under a contract that's not legally null and void, but politically it's null and void.
Maybe nice to take a look at the process that they did in Sequim, and kind of the thing that could really help us out, Mike, is if we look at duties and responsibilities, it's the classic, what's on this list that you don't do, or what is on this list that needs to be emphasized. And it'd be interesting to see if the Sequim process had changes to the scope of responsibilities.
Well, and I know they redid the contract.
yes, yeah, no, they because of the way that this person worked with the council, I thought that it might make a good fit for what our needs are right now. I would expect to be able to bring more information forth by this time next week, so we can keep pushing this along.
Good.
I also wanted to, on a different subject, just touch base about the finance committee meeting, and I'm uncertain, and I don't know if anyone else knows, has there been a date and time reestablished for an official finance committee meeting? Does anyone know?
I saw one in the paper, but that's the only notification I
Right, okay,
Is our representative to the finance committee, I think, have a right to make that inquiry?
yes. Well,
I'm okay if you want to make that inquiry since you're going to be serving on the finance committee.
okay, great.
Is Bob going to give us a briefing on the timeline for everything next week?
Yes, I asked him as part of after he's bringing back to you the analysis of the bids, I asked him based on the new information that at least I read in the paper about the finance committee moving back a couple of weeks, I told him to, instead of trying to hurry back on the 8th of March, to bring the analysis to you and the information to go ahead and take one extra week so that he can prepare all of the data and all of the information, including all of the
Well, I wouldn't even
information.
coming back to the board until the finance committee meets. That's been the board's decision. Unless the board wants to make a 2-to-1 vote here, I mean, we've not wanted that to come back till it goes to the finance committee. So he's got all kinds of time. That's my position.
Okay, well, I told him, when we first heard that the finance committee was canceled, I told him because he was worried about being able to get done in time to bring it back on the 7th, at least the analysis of the bids and get direction to the board on what they wanted to do. And so then when we heard the finance committee was going to be the end of the month, I said, is that enough time to let the bids and go to the contract? And he says, I think it'll have to be. And so I said, okay, fine, well then bring it back at least in work session, take an extra week, bring it back in work session on the 15th, not the regular meeting.
That's going to cue, that's going to upset. That's wrong.
Well,
The board is wanted to
you
go to
want,
the
if you don't want
finance
to see it.
Because if we have a meeting here, then the finance committee is going to be somewhat neutralized because they're going to assume the board's already made a decision and the process just got ran through, you know.
So I was only anticipating work session. If you don't even want, it's not a decision.
Well,
If you don't want to see that, then.
I'm one of 3. So if you guys want to have it move forward and jump in front of the finance committee, I would caution the board not to do that. But if you want to, I'll step aside.
But the information that I have when I marked last Thursday, I talked to Paul Clallam for an interview, and that morning he had talked to the treasurer. And so at that point in time, it's consistent with what made it into the paper. My understanding is that the treasurer will return March 24 and then schedule the meeting upon returning. Now, the technical part about that is, and I'm willing to stand away from the meeting, but she had invited me with 2 commissioners in that room, we need a notice. And if it helps expedite, I'm happy to stand down from attending. But that tells me that somewhere toward the end of the month, a decision scheduling the meeting will occur. My only concern about not looking at the timeline Bob's putting together is I really do want to know how much time do we have to hit the objective of decreased payments. I don't know if you're familiar with how that works. My understanding is there's a little over $250,000 on the board, and my understanding is tentatively March 1st. So if you're able to reach out to the treasurer, April 1st.
That's what he told me was the tentative, he thought that.
So if you're able to reach out, well, I mean, I know she's still not at work, and it won't surprise me if she takes time for a response, but if it was possible for her to say, you know what, let's have a meeting on this date, then the only red flag is we got to compare that with the April 1st timeline. And if that date she sets is like April 15th, then we should have a conversation. But if it's before April 1st, then we've got the meeting set, let's get up and running.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, what's important is not the formal name. To me, what's important is that we're trying to engage in the practice of having a conversation, and I don't, we've got a couple of important projects that are both time dependent, and we need to acknowledge that. And so if the process now, though delayed, can be accomplished within the time frame that we need to make the decision, then I would like to do that. If it can't be accomplished in the time frame that we need, then I would work to advocate for something else. So I will attempt to communicate with the treasurer and find out if we can schedule or reschedule a formal finance committee meeting in enough time for us to meet the deadline.
And then the other thing I was thinking about, Mike, is ideally that would be the right way to go. And I actually have documented that the commissioners reached out to the people in the county with the responsibility to look at these financial issues. But I'm wondering if we couldn't achieve the same thing by simply inviting those same individuals to one of our work sessions. It's not a finance committee meeting, I understand that. But we would be able to draw on people with that kind of skill and expertise before we make an important decision. Just middle ground idea for you.
Could, it is statutorily required and needs to occur in the first quarter of the year. So I think that this is the reason. I just encourage you to reach out, try to get it scheduled. I think it needs to be scheduled in the first quarter of the year by statute. And these issues, the board's been clear we wanted them vetted by the finance committee. I think it's the right way to go. I'm not quite as worried about an arbitrary deadline because, quite frankly, if you look at the scope of this project, there have been lots of deadlines that have been missed. So for the board to be somewhat held hostage at this late date when other deadlines have been missed many, many times, I'm not quite buying, but I think you have to do it the right way. These are the projects to do it the right way, and deadlines. I just think we need to have a meeting in March, get a recommendation, and move forward. But the board can't be held hostage by an artificial deadline.
And we'll proceed in as professional manner as we possibly can. Margaret, if there's anything I can do to help out, like this issue of having two commissioners in the room, I'm happy to stand down.
All right. Well, I will, for right now, I will try and work with the treasurer and see if we can reestablish a date, or see if she will reestablish a firm date, ideally in March, for the finance committee. I'll keep you posted.
Anything else on future agenda items?
I don't know if this one's going to develop, but just a heads up for the commissioners. When the Interform mill closed down in Forks, there's assistance through Department of Commerce that was made available to employees, particularly to go to school at Peninsula College. I learned that the same process was applied for by Allen's Mill. It was denied. And I don't get it. So one of the things I'll be doing when I'm in Olympia this week is meeting with some of the people associated with that decision. There may be an issue with regard to the transition in ownership and the new owners being less focused on taking care of some paperwork. It's just that I had a heart-to-heart conversation with a person that was working at the mill. Is happier than heck to have a janitor's job right now, and his wife's a night watchman, and what he would really like to do, he would really like to go to school. And this isn't an option for him right now, so I'm going to dig into it.
Great.
And then if you are interacting with any of the other electeds, if I don't get any progress on this on Wednesday, I do have a meeting already set up with Senator Hargrove, and I'll bring it to his attention.
So, opportunity for the board to start, we probably need to move that to be decided, and what will be happening in the next 2 weeks, most likely.
Okay.
The Veterans Program still coming on March 7th for the policy updates. Request for proposals for videotaping of public meetings, are we still on track for early March?
Yes, we are.
Proposals.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll get it done next week, but maybe. I mean, it'll depend on what happens today and tomorrow with IT. But the goal was to get it done by this Thursday so we could note it up for next week is our goal.
Emergency management, they're coming back on another Cascadia Rising briefing.
Yes, because they're asking us, they've got to ask us, you, to sign a resolution supporting the process. And they forgot to do that the first time, so that's planning to come back next week.
The details on that resolution are the last page of that handout.
Right. You're still working on Strike Peak Road and the whole tip issue.
Okay.
You're in charge, you're working on that. Any movement on District Courts 1 and 2, or is that going to die?
It's taken worse.
So should we take it off for now?
I think it will, right now, I don't believe it's possible that it will happen. Events that occurred this morning, that's why I was late coming in, have simply, the gauntlet has been thrown down between the two judges and they're not going to talk to each other.
Okay. Well, for now, I think the board's intent was clear, but
yeah, we wanted to do something and I thought we were going to get there and it's taken a bad turn.
Not going to get there in the next couple of weeks.
And you think the review of the county administrator job description and contract to be in the next early March?
Yeah,
Mid-March?
I intend to keep moving that along. I don't know what I'll find out from this person, but I would certainly plan to at least report that next week with an update.
So we'll make that early to mid-March.
And we'll have I'm assuming that's a professional service, there'll be some sort of contract.
Oh, for sure, yes.
So that will affect the timelines, but.
Yes, yes.
If there's any budget modifications, I assume that Rich should just deal directly with the board. Well, if you probably should put a firewall with Rich between Rich and this issue.
Okay, well, I'm completely supportive. I mean, it's not an issue for me. Charlie Bush talked to me about his process and found it to be very helpful to him, to be illustrative and what it was his board felt was most important and moving forward. And, boy, I could never object to that. I don't see it.
Just in case you were to say that there's no money or something.
Oh, no, there's money. There's money in your budget. We have the professional services, $25,000 undesignated in your budget. So you
That'll cover one. You think?
Probably 5 times over.
Be optimistic for the SART. Let's put that late March.
Yes. I would like to remain optimistic for that.
And just so you know, the question has come up late last week on the pool district, why we haven't agreed to put on the agenda the pool districts, Port Angeles Pool District or William Shore request for money, and I thought I was very clear with the pool director and with the EDC that until we had an answer on the SARC and the Carlsberg sewer use of money, we didn't know if we had any, so we couldn't bring it up. And they both acknowledged, oh yes, I forgot about that.
Well, I think that just speaks to the importance of ensuring that the treasurer holds a finance committee meeting, that and we have the discussion in as timely a manner as possible.
No, I agree. And even though it's a smaller amount, I like the idea of mapping out your all the requests here, other funding sources.
Right. And that's the point. That's the point of trying to loop in with the finance committee, trying to have the larger conversation, so that everyone can see what the plan is.
Sounds good. All right, let's stay optimistic. Anything else you guys want to add? Anytime soon? Did you want to add for a later date, are you going to reconstitute the climate change action group?
I'm still thinking about that. I will probably be ready to talk about that next week.
Okay.
So I'm
Not quite ready to add it.
yeah, not quite ready yet. Well, I don't know. I suppose that we could add it to next week's agenda. That would be fine.
Wasn't that currently being addressed through some of the work the RCMD is doing?
Yes, and I had a meeting with someone last Thursday that helped to frame one way of thinking about how to move forward, and frankly, I just haven't processed that yet, so I wasn't going to talk about it today. But
That's fine. Why don't we add a climate change action team? We'll go mid to late March.
that sounds fine.
And you got plenty of time.
Yeah,
That's our plan. Just so.
Yeah.
And not to plug it just because I used to be on the committee and now you are, but the issue that I saw when they executed on that contract with ecology, is I think they were very well organized. If you think about it, those meetings were very well attended.
Yes, they were.
And that takes a bit of hustle. And then the thing that I appreciate the most was that it wasn't come into the room, the yeses are on one side of the room, the noes are on the other side, it's like tug of war. Actually, they set the stage by saying we're not here to discuss the sources of climate change. We're here to discuss what you do about it. And that led to a non-confrontational, constructive meeting. So, just, I don't know if you went to one of those, didn't you, Mike, up there at the Missile College? And there were a lot of people. So for what it's worth, that's a group that could facilitate another group. And she's proven that she did a good job.
Great.
Anything else you guys want to add? Seems like our plan gets bigger, not smaller, wasn't it? It's okay.
There's a lot going on.
All right, well, this week's meeting, next week's meeting will be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Anything on the agenda tomorrow that you're comfortable with?
No, we're good to go.
Change your mind and let us know before tomorrow. Okay, good luck. Good week.
Official transit event, your expenses for attending will be eligible for both payment and assistance and official event. And they are asking for an RSVP. Does anyone?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to that one. Like last year, it's 2 o'clock at Sunland. It's a really good event, too.
It doesn't have a time, interesting. It asks you to RSVP, it says Sunday, March 13th.
Right? No, they gave us the heads up at the board meeting.
Anyone?
I may attend that, I'll let you know, but next week, so you've got time to announce it.
Correspondence from Jan L. Richardson regarding the YMCA SARC request for a grant for the air defense. And then I'm going to send something around with some stars. Bob Martin gave me a copy of the bid document for the Carlsberg sewer bids that will be opening tomorrow. It is a 6-page bid document that they'll be filling in. He would like you to read the ones that I've starred, numbers 1 and 3. So when you get the bids, this is what you're going to be looking for to read into the record tomorrow. So just page 6.
Then I wanted to report on a piece of correspondence, if you're done.
I believe I am.
Last week, late, all 3 of you received an email, internal email, concerning one of our people's wife who was...
Oh,
All right.
congratulations.
Thank you.
To your children. Any changes there? I guess this is a calendar item as well. Commissioner Ozai, you mentioned in a board meeting that the Salish Behavioral Health Organization membership was looking at all of the commissioners from each
Yes.
of the 3 counties getting together. And they sent out a doodle report. And I asked them to give me some dates. I know one responded. They're looking at Tuesdays and Fridays in March, 10 through 11. Times are 10 to 11 or 11 to 2. And so I don't know, what was your preference?
Almost all of those dates work for me, except for there was maybe one. I'd have to go back and look at my email to see. But most of those were good for me.
So it looks like 10, 11, 17, 18, 24, 25.
I think except for March 24th and 25th, I think most of the others were fine for me.
Okay, so the 24th is the North Olympic Development Council. which
Correct.
You're an attendee for that.
And the 25th is a marine sanctuary.
So those won't work for you.
Correct. Those will not work, but all the other ones I think will.
Can't do either of the other, and did you have a time preference?
No.
Can you wonder?
No, I didn't.
See, good setup. Figure it out.
Okay, are you open?
Well, I am right now, but one never knows.
Okay,
So-
then Commissioner Peach?
Same here, was the 17th one of
But
them?
you're trying to get 3 counties commissioners scheduled. so I don't think You're
17th
going to
is-
make it where everything's perfect.
The 17th is the KONP.
Turned away from the clerk's office, trying to use a personal check, and I was asked to investigate in that. And what I found was that, and confirmed this morning, I was not aware from my entire time here, Superior Court clerk has never accepted personal checks. Barb assured me this morning that, in fact, her entire time here as the clerk, the previous clerk prior to her, and the previous clerk prior to her. So for at least 25 years, as far as anybody can look, Superior Court clerk's office has never accepted a personal check. This is not a new thing. We are working on trying to get a credit card vendor, or we've been approached by a credit card vendor that will charge the fee to the person using the credit card in court, in Superior Court, and trying to get permission from the state, because Superior Court's a little different than District Court. The money, the checks that we get in going towards Superior Court fees, they all go to the state. And then they send us back our share, whereas the District Court, they all come to us, and we take out the state's share and send it. So I just want to let you know that this is not a new thing. Barb is going to be responding this morning, and then I've been trying to get a hold of the sender of this to talk to him myself. He's got another crisis out there that we're trying to deal with, and I'm not sure where we're going to go with his personnel. And as you know, some of you already know about that. So just want to let you know, personal checks, this is not a new thing. It is certainly nothing pointed toward this individual. It's, as far as anybody can tell, always been that way. We don't take personal checks for Superior Court.
I haven't used it. Do you have a cash machine here?
Yes.
ATM?
Yes.
So there's another solution.
Yeah. We do take.
Right. That was my only issue. That's
Okay.
the day that.
And I got you in a conference call webinar at 1:30 on the
Yeah. And I'll move that around. I can record that.
Any preference, morning or afternoon? Anyone?
Easy. Good luck on that one.
Thank you.
9 commissioners in the room at the same
I'm
time?
gonna need some.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
The goal would be to get a majority of each board there. Probably.
I think they were hoping to have all 3 of the boards from Kitsap, Jefferson, and
Yes.
Clallam together. Is that
Yes,
right?
they were.
So, correspondence. You received an invitation to the chemical dependency, mental health meetings, homelessness task force, and the developmental disabilities advisory committee. So just kind of, if you're interested in attending when their regularly scheduled meetings are. Have a letter from Puyallup Valley Parks and Rec regarding the Trust Funds Advisory Committee. It says they just wanted to thank you about establishing that, and because they're a junior taxing district, they're impacted by that funding. Please be our guest for Save the Olympic Peninsula's fundraising event, Town Road, March 5th. You all were invited to that. Letter that was sent to Commissioner Peach, excuse me, all 3 of you, I copied it to you. Transit System Employee Award Ceremony, Sunday, March 13th. Dinner buffet, CP Awards, Employee of the Quarter, Employee of the Year. I started with March because the only month today was work session. And we have some long-term things coming up. There is a Mariners game on the 21st of April, through the time you would normally have K1B. So they are proposing the 20th or the 28th. And then on May 19th, they're proposing the 26th. So those are a bit of ways out.
How does everyone's time? What's good for you guys, since I had a little show to myself last night.
Either of those would be fine again.
Again, what were the choices?
April 20th instead of the 21st. It's a Wednesday, so you're usually in the West End on Wednesday.
Or what was the other choice?
Or 28th, which is Thursday. Do I do
John Wayne?
Yeah, I think I go on the 28th.
So maybe the 20th?
Yeah, probably the 20th would be better.
And then do we want to look out to May or? do we want to just go for it now?
Let's just stick with April for right now.
Commissioner Beach, you're going to be basically out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Will I see you Friday?
With luck, they're trying to draw me into another meeting dealing with the Whole River Trust
Okay.
in Seattle on Friday. See if I can get by with just a phone call.
Other than Commissioner Peach, the next 2 weeks look pretty benign.
I get a day out of the office Wednesday through Friday because my wife and I are celebrating our wedding